Mr. Schwartz. How are you?
Hi, very well, thanks.
Is there long-term evidence, long-term studies that conclusively show genetically modified food is not introducing something into our bodies that makes us more prone to allergies, affects our immune system in a negative way?
No, because there cannot possibly be such evidence. Science can never be 100% certain about anything. What we can say is that based upon the evidence that we have available at any given time, we can make some very, very solid, educated guesses on what is going on. And I think with the, in the area of genetic modification, we are standing on a large, large pedestal of information. So we are pretty accurate about what we say.
But wait, I'm going to interrupt you
nobody
because...
ever suggests that there's no risk.
Yeah, but why are there not long-term studies on this? I mean, we have long-term studies on pharmaceuticals, do we not?
Oh, there absolutely are.
Yeah.
There absolutely are long-term studies. The amount of literature that is available on this is gigantic. There are long-term studies on rodents. There are long-term studies in sheep, in lactating animals, long-term studies in poultry. There's a tremendous amount of human epidemiological evidence as well, because we have been consuming genetically modified foods for a long time. There's a lot of misconception here. First of all, in Canada, people think that everything that we eat is genetically modified. Well, the only things that are modified through recombinant DNA technology in Canada are soy, corn, and canola. That is it. People have the mistaken impression that if they're looking at a large strawberry, it is because it has been subjected to recombinant DNA technology.
Yeah.
This is not the case at all. This is done by purely traditional crossbreeding. And the fact is that traditional crossbreeding, which of course we have been doing for millennia, is as likely to introduce novel proteins, including novel allergens, as recombinant DNA technology. It doesn't matter whether or not the genetic modification is done in the laboratory or is done in the field by sprinkling pollen on a plant.
Yeah.
The end result is the introduction of novel proteins.
Can you just explain what is genetically modified grain? And would you add wheat to that as well? Because there are some concerns that the wheat grain we use today is not the one of ancient days, and some people are raising an alarm over that.
Okay, first of all, there is no genetically modified wheat that is grown in Canada in terms of recombinant DNA technology. There are no genes that have been introduced in the lab. What we do have, of course, is traditional crossbreeding, which has been going on for millennia, where one farmer takes the pollen and sprinkles it on a crop, and then you get crossbreeding. And yes, it is absolutely true that the wheat that we eat today or the corn that we eat today is not like it used to be centuries ago.
Okay.
But that has all been arrived at through traditional crossbreeding.
So crossbreeding is safe? Is GMO?
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. I mean, nothing in life is absolutely safe, right? We go by the evidence available. And in this case, a huge mountain has been made out of a molehill in terms of suggesting that there are allergens present. It just is not the case. Any time that there's recombinant DNA technology that is introduced, there's extensive and exhaustive testing done on the proteins which are being introduced to see whether or not those are potentially allergenic. And we have a huge data bank on proteins which have specific molecular structures that we know can be linked to allergies. So testing is done in vitro, that is in the laboratory. It's done in silico, meaning that you do computer modeling. It's done in animal experiments. We follow it with human epidemiological evidence. And the fact is that you don't turn up anything of any consequence.
Right. Well, at least not that we know of right now, right? That is the issue. As far as we know, it is okay.
But, you know, it's a challenge that science can never meet. The what if. You know, what if we find out something 20 years from now? Well, yes, that is always a possibility.
Okay.
Except that we have very good data on which to make guesses about what may and may not happen. I can't even guarantee to you that the sun will come up tomorrow, but I think it's a pretty good bet that it will.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is the reason perhaps then we're a little more worried than perhaps we ought to be? Is it because there's a sense that we're losing control of the food supply right now? We're seeing, some argue, a handful of corporations taking these grains, modifying them. There are lawsuits involving huge companies like Monsanto where they control the grains. farmers plant them, they put them in the soil, then the company argues, well, the soil's contaminated with some of the nutrients that we effectively have a patent right to. Farmers are losing their farms. I mean, is this all part of the debate and perhaps why we are so concerned? We don't have
that
control.
Certainly is part of the debate.
Yeah.
That certainly is part of the debate, but there are two debates here. There's the philosophical debate and there's the scientific debate. And yes, organic farmers have a bone to pick when they say that they may get pollen drift from a neighboring field onto their crop and then they cannot sell their crop as organic. Yes, that's a legitimate argument. But that's quite distinct from suggesting that there's some health hazard that is involved with genetic modification.
Right.
There are economic issues, there are political issues, there are some environmental issues with weeds developing resistance. Those are certainly significant issues that need to be addressed. But in terms of human health, no, I just don't buy into that because there's absolutely no evidence. And as I said, the genetic modified foods that people worry about, which are coming from seeds that are distributed by Monsanto, etc., are limited to very few foods. And
right.
It's corn and soy and canola, and most of that goes for animal feed.
Right.
So